Trevor Noah has been lambasted for criticising what he perceives as vaccine profiteering. If Trevor Noah can't make a few jokes about vaccine profiteering, does that mean all criticism is off the table forever? And yeah, thanks, I just got it. Hello there, you 4.5 million awakening souls, you free individuals, you warriors against injustice and untruth. Wherever you may have found yourself previously on the political spectrum, you find yourself here, now, with us, together, accepting difference, reaching out across aisles, real and imaginary, to find new ways together. Now, if you're in the UK between January and May, come and see me. I'm all over the gaff. I'm going to be in Hammersmith performing early February. It's a great gig. Get your tickets. There's a link in the description. Trevor Noah has got into some trouble, even though we're not really sure if he's in trouble, because I've been in this position myself. Sometimes what happens is someone says something, there's a tweet, the tweet gets amplified a bit, the media report on the tweet, there's not really a controversy. But let's look at what he said and why it would even be subject to this type of critique. This is from the New York Post, which I believe is sort of like a Bible that's issued every day. No one's laughing at the Daily Show host Trevor Noah's new take on coronavirus vaccine maker Moderna. The late-night comedian appears to be suspicious of Moderna's CEO Stéphane Bancel, who recently went public with concerns over how well his vaccines will hold up against the Omicron variant. Noah questioned Bancel's intentions as he alleges the Pharma's boss may not be the most objective source for pandemic predictions. Of course, I have recognised, given what I do for a living, that there appears to be new forms of censorship and control being practiced. And of course, the argument is these forms of censorship are necessary in order to preserve and protect life, or at least increase the duration of life is the argument, because quality of life would include freedom of speech, from my perspective, for all people, particularly people I disagree with, because otherwise it's not freedom of speech at all, it's just the amplification of my own opinions. Now, I don't feel like Trevor Noah said anything that controversial, but let's have a little look at what he did say, and then we can use our own minds, without a media lens, to decide for ourselves what we think.
On the one hand, almost all the Omicron cases have been mild so far.
Already, right, saying that, I feel like has become a controversial thing to say. People don't like you to say that, do they? Trevor Noah just seems to be saying on Comedy Central, a commercial channel owned by Viacom, a massive conglomerate, that the Omicron cases so far have been mild. I'm guessing that his sources check out.
But on the other hand, the guy who stands to gain millions of dollars from new vaccines says we need new vaccines.
Why would you not want that to be part of the conversation, knowing what you know, not only about Big Pharma, but the function of global capitalism or giant global corporations more generally? You don't have to do too much research on Johnson & Johnson, Pharma, Pfizer, Moderna to see that there have been examples of profiteering in their past. The evidence is out there, the court cases have taken place, the settlements have been issued. So saying that profit is a motivation for a corporate enterprise is not a slanderous assertion, it is literally the function of those organisations. Add to that the insistence on indemnity, the 50 years before much of the research material can be revealed, it does create an environment where some queries and questions must take place. Those of us that have the truth on side have nothing to fear from inquiry.
Now look, I'm not saying that the CEO of Moderna is lying. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I don't think he's the most objective source on this topic.
Of course, you could say that the revolving door between Washington and Big Pharma, the fact that the regulatory bodies are funded by the companies that they regulate, the consistent themes of people that have worked for one agency working for another private organisation, the amount of money spent on lobbying mean that even people in apparently public positions have queries around their neutrality. What my concern is not what is the truth around the pandemic or what is the truth around certain medications. That's not an area that we're discussing in this particular instance. What we're talking about is Trevor Noah, pretty much a rubber-stamped member of the liberal media. This is not like some radical outsider broadcasting from a pirate ship in the middle of the Pacific. This is owned by Viacom. So we're not talking about, oh my God, this is crazy. And also what he's saying is, what do you think that part of the motivation for companies is to make money? Hey, how dare you? Some viewers were evidently incensed. Said one Twitter user, "This seems to be spreading an anti-vax point of view." I mean, isn't it weird? People want to be policed. People want to be censored. Say you do feel, oh, that's spreading an anti-vax point of view, but my point of view is pro-vax, so I don't care. When do people start pointing themselves as the police of conversation? Hey, I don't want people saying stuff that I don't agree with. Well, you're meant to be living in a democracy. Meanwhile, Raphael Shimonov, a Queens-based political activist, said, "You could be suspicious of Big Pharma and believe in vaccines and science, just like you can be suspicious of Big Tech while using your phone to read this." Seems like a good point. It was earlier this week that Bancel confessed fears of a material drop in COVID-19 vaccine efficacy against newer strains of the disease, such as the Omicron variant. What you start to recognise is there is no such objective thing called truth. There is not only a scientific argument, there is a philosophical and ideological, a political argument to be had, a political conversation to be had. Or do you want to abandon all your understanding of how corporations behave in allegiance with governments and have historically behaved, and even as recently as the opioid crisis, including some of the players that are being queried in this instance? Do you want to just cast that aside? We're not saying that's definitely true, but we're saying it's not definitely not true, and we're saying even more, you should be able to have a conversation about it. I think it's going to be a material drop. I just don't know how much. But all the scientists I've talked to are like, this is not going to be good, he added. If you're going to say what Trevor Noah was saying there was anti-vax, and I would never allege that, seems to me he's just having a conversation, a pretty mild one at that, then wouldn't you label what Stefan Bancel is saying here is going to be a material drop? I don't know how much. All the scientists I've talked to are like, this is not going to be good. Could you not argue that's fear-mongering? Is it that there's one set of criteria to judge one argument and an entirely different criteria to judge another argument? Having values and principles mean, these are my values, these are my principles, bring on the information. I'll evaluate it according to my values and my principles. When new information comes, my opinion changes necessarily, because opinions change all the time, because they're based, yes, on some deep held essential values, but also they're practical. We evolved in conjunction with our environment. We aren't separate from our environment. We are in a constant dialogue with our environment. That's what a human being is. Evolution hasn't finished. It's happening now in your consciousness. You need to be alert to reality. You need to evolve alongside it. Anything that stymies, prevents, curtails, controls, directs your personal evolution is an assault on your freedom. The World Health Organization, check the funding! The World Health Organization has thus far classified Omicron as a variant of concern. Meanwhile, the WHO's chief scientist, Soumya Swaminathan, noted it's not anywhere near as threatening as the Delta variant. How worried should we be, she said. We need to be prepared and cautious, not panic, because we're in a different situation to a year ago. So what that scientist said seems to be at odds with what the head of the potentially profiteering pharmaceutical company said. We don't need to panic. Here's the great Luke Shaw writing in Jacobin. With the emergence of yet another COVID-19 variant, there's no end to the global pandemic in sight. It's bad news for everyone who hoped that 2022 might bring about a return to some kind of normalcy, or see the end of the kind of restrictions and punitive travel bans now being reintroduced. It's decidedly good news, on the other hand, for a few big pharmaceutical companies who have already made a killing from vaccines and are set to reap big gains as variants like Omicron continue to proliferate. Moderna and Pfizer have added billions to their market capitalizations in a matter of days since news of Omicron first broke, amid an anticipated demand for booster shots and, by extension, huge profits. 2021 has already been a banner year for the various pharma companies who have successfully made their brands synonymous with the distribution of vaccines. Pfizer's profits jumping some 124% in the first 3 quarters of the year when compared to 2020, and Johnson & Johnson's some 24%. What you see as well is Pfizer offering assurances to their shareholders that the year ahead will be profitable and positive based on the assumption that there will be continued uptake of these products. That's the problem with having a private enterprise of any kind involved in something on this scale. As lucrative business models go, Big Pharma's pandemic strategy is about as good as it gets. The mRNA-type vaccines produced by the likes of Pfizer and Moderna were only developed thanks to billions in public-funded research, and both companies paid well under the statutory US tax rate in the first half of this year. So the research that led to mRNA vaccines was funded by you. When it comes to paying taxes, they're given tax breaks, so the money can't go back to you. When they make profits, the profits go to them. Did you see? Did you see the gravity and the magnetism of the situation? That's another thing that makes you query what's going on. With the encouragement, protection and cooperation of some of the world's richest and most powerful states, both have also overwhelmingly sold shots within wealthy countries, successfully charging as much as 24 times the actual production cost, resulting in doses 5 times more expensive than they need to be. As an actual response to a global pandemic goes, the big pharma-led vaccine rollout has wrought a completely avoidable humanitarian crisis that's quite rightly called vaccine apartheid by its critics. Until vaccine production formulas are shared and doses made widely available at low cost, we can expect a hugely profitable industry continuing to make a killing from it all. Do you know the question this leaves me with is, if you're going to report on Trevor Noah getting some blowback because he made a joke about Moderna potentially profiteering and the pursuit of profit having some impact on the way they behave and conduct their business, why, when it's reported on, are you not given the accompanying set of facts? Oh, we should probably tell you that this is how much money Pfizer have made, this is how much money is being accrued around these policies, this is how the whole situation works. If you're only given one side of the story, that's not just an accidental omission, that's the management of information. That is called propaganda. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Tell me what you think about this. Is Trevor Noah right? Do you think that both sides of this apparent political divide need to come together and demand truth and open conversation? Is that what you reckon? Give us a thumbs up. Hit the notification bell so you can hear me continually dinging in your mind. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this saucy little guy. And if you need to meditate now to escape all this insanity, sign up to my Awakening Side channel. Consider too joining my mailing list where I tell you what I'm thinking, what I'm reading, where I'm going, what I'm doing. Also, what I'll tell you is I'm performing all over the UK from January to May. Particularly, I want you to come see me in Hammersmith in London early February. I'll see you there. Stay free.